Lance Stroll's recent downhill performance has raised some questions about his future in the sport, and although his father is backing him up for as long as he's the leader of the team, this scenario is bound to change sooner rather than later. With all the investors raising questions about his sustainability of Aston Martin, with its current drivers lineup as well as the leadership of the team having an obvious bias towards one of the drivers, Lawrence Stroll might have to look into other options if he is to keep his team alive in the foreseeable future. But with Cognizant stepping down from the title sponsor role, rumours about Lawrence selling the team to the highest bidder have been enhanced even further. And even if this is not a realistic scenario, Lance's presence in the team is currently costing them a lot, which is a loose end Lawrence needs to fix as soon as possible, with potential replacements already on their way. Aston Martin has been one of the most positive surprises in 2023, especially in the first half of the season when the team has been more or less a top 3 squad, winning podiums with Alonso in a regular manner. In fact, in the first 8 races, Alonso has been able to climb on the podium 6 times, which made it a strong case for him to fight for P2 in the Drivers' Championship and put Aston Martin in a position that they could only have dreamed of in their first 2 years in the sport. However, after the recent struggles that started at Silverstone and were only deepened by McLaren finding more pace and performance out of the MCL 60, as well as Mercedes being more stable in the points finish, Aston Martin is now under threat of losing the 4th spot in the Constructors' Championship. Now, being a top 3 team and dropping down to the 5th fastest squad is a scenario that definitely raises some questions, such as the consistency of its drivers. Now, apart from the performance being the obvious reason for the AMR 23's deficit, with Alonso no longer being present on the podiums as much as he was in the first half of the season and only having 1 podium in the remainder of the calendar, there is one factor that we cannot turn a blind eye to, and that's the performance of Lance Stroll. The son of the owner of Aston Martin has had some seriously questionable performances in the past couple of weeks, such as the one in Qatar, where he angrily threw the steering wheel in the garage and pushed his trainer after exiting the car in the garage after being knocked out in Q1. And Lance being knocked out in Q1 is a scenario that we've been seeing for quite some time now, especially in the second half of the season when the car started to lose out on its initial momentum in 2023. The best result that Lance had was P4, and it wasn't even in a regular race manner, it was during the sprint race in Austria. To top that off, the numbers compared to Alonso are quite disappointing. 0 podiums compared to the Spaniard 7 and a difference of 136 points in the Drivers' Championship. The fact that Lance has bagged in only 47 points and is very close to being overtaken by both Alpine drivers and effectively finishing the season 12th while having the 4th or 5th fastest car on the grid speaks volumes about his interest in the sport as well as the danger he presents to the future of Aston Martin. In Qatar, Lance has even failed to out-qualify Logan Sargent, which goes to show that there was something significantly wrong with his commitment to the race, especially after his controversial statement after the qualifying session, where he failed to say anything productive and just rushed to finish it as soon as possible. Now, the team has been allegedly connected to being sold to one of the largest Saudi Arabian oil companies, Aramco, as they're currently the only title sponsor that the Silverstone-based team has after Cognizant's withdrawal. The current offer stands at $800 million, and while it has been refused by Lawrence Stroll once, it goes without saying that it's definitely going to be reconsidered again. Lawrence himself said that while F1 has been booming lately, it's a business that burns, pointing towards the fact that you cannot always be in the plus here, even though you're making significant strides compared to the previous season. Many believe that Lawrence is not going to commit to this move because he has invested so much in the team, but F1 experts believe that the sole reason for Lawrence's commitment is his son, and Lance is the only reason Lawrence is in this business in the first place. Obviously, he cannot make it on his own, and he needs the support of the sponsors, who wouldn't mind if Alonso had a second competitive driver alongside him that could help him in the Constructors' Championship battle much more than Lance is doing right now. The biggest threat that Aston Martin is facing is one of not having 2 consistent drivers. So even if Lawrence remains at the helm of the team, changes regarding the seat next to Alonso will be inevitably forced upon him. Obviously, the only fan of Lance right now is probably his father, and although we've seen some great flashes of him in his early days at Williams as well as at Racing Point, once his father has taken over Aston Martin in F1, there is nothing that Lance has done to impress us, even when his team has given him a competitive car to race with. Now, outperforming Alonso in the same machinery is a questionable task in and of itself, and that's something we're not implying should happen if you're Lance Stroll. However, having the deficit that he has right now is also a very significant indicator that something is terribly wrong with how Lance approaches the entire F1 journey. And Lance is no rookie by all means. He's entered into his 7th season as a full-time F1 driver, which should be enough of a factor for him to perform much better. Now, Aston Martin has made a commitment with Honda from 2026 onwards to use their engines, and although this move has been dubbed a revolutionary one for the team's progress, it's very unlikely that it will come without its own consequences for the future of Lance Stroll. Honda has one driver that is currently racing in AlphaTauri, Yuki Tsunoda, and although the Japanese driver is under a contract with Red Bull, Honda might want to poach him for their journey with the Silverstone-based squad as early as in 2024. If the buyout of Aston Martin is completed before 2024 and Lawrence steps down from leading the team in the next couple of seasons, then there is nothing that would force Aramco to keep Lance in his seat. After all, Lawrence is a businessman, and making tough decisions is part of his daily life, even though this one might hurt a lot more than the previous one he had to make. Honda has committed to Yuki in a recent statement, and they said that although he drives for AlphaTauri, they will also have a say in his future from 2026 onwards. But with how the recent development has gone with Aston Martin, it seems like Yuki will have the opportunity to perform in a much more competitive squad starting as early as from 2024, paired up with Fernando Alonso. Elaborating on this matter, the president of the Honda Racing Corporation, Koji Watanabe, said, "Franz Tost and I agreed that we would first take a close look at the project for 3 years and then evaluate it together and have a discussion around the summer of the 3rd year. Basically, there was a common understanding that he was an indispensable driver for AlphaTauri. The reason it took so long to make the announcement was because we were working out the details. We were discussing various things about how Honda should support AlphaTauri until 2025, about how it operates." But obviously, with how the situation between Honda and Red Bull unfolded, Watanabe is more than aware that their priority right now should be Aston Martin, and they should pay more attention to what is happening in the Silverstone-based squad's environment right now. And when talking about this matter, he continued, "Our goal is to become #1 in the world with Aston Martin after 2026, so we don't want to let go of the pieces necessary to achieve that. I hope Tsunoda will grow up and become an essential piece for us by then. And I tell Yuki, it doesn't matter where you can go wherever you can win. If we're a team that can provide that space, we would like the drivers to come. And if we're a bad Honda team, I don't think that they will want to come." Even Helmut Marko admitted that Aston Martin has shown interest in Tsunoda for 2024, but in order for them to achieve their goal, they would have to come to an agreement with Red Bull first rather than Honda, as Tsunoda is currently under contractual obligations with the Austrian team as well. With all the expertise and knowledge Honda will bring to Aston Martin, it's safe to presume that they'll push for a more stable lineup, one that will preferably not have any nepotistic relationship with the owners of the team. That's something that would suit not only Honda, but also Aston Martin's sponsors. And if Lawrence wants to see his team continue the uprise in form they started at the beginning of 2023, he would have to make some heavy decision making in the foreseeable future. So, do you think Tsunoda will join Aston Martin as early as 2024? Let us know in the comments down below.